It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in the capital city of Namibia, Windhoek. A very good morning to you and welcome to today's briefing, coming to you live from the Government Communication Center with me, Asteria Njenja, and today I am joined by Dr. Alfredo Engari, Press Secretary from the Presidency, to give us a brief on President Hage Geingoob's successful participation in the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly, or UNGA 78 in New York, United States of America. Well, the President's participation, of course, presented a vital opportunity for Namibia to enhance diplomatic relations, attract international investments, and underscore its commitment to sustainable development. Well, Doctor, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Asteria. It's indeed a privilege for me to be here with you this morning.
Thank you. Also, if you are watching us from Facebook, please leave your questions there, and the colleagues will share the questions, and then we will post them to Dr. Engari. We are also live on NBC Digital, as well as on our Facebook page or our YouTube channels. Doctor, in a summary, briefly tell us President Geingoob's trip to the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly.
Yeah, Asteria, this was the penultimate participation of President Geingob in the United Nations General Assembly. As you know, next year will be his last before he leaves office in March 2025. President Geingob had exciting meetings on the margins of the General Assembly. And that's in addition to the general statement that the President made to the Assembly. Let me start with some of the meetings. The President met with the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Olaf Scholz, to discuss a very important summit that is going to take place next year, and that is the Summit for the Future. President Geingob and the Federal Chancellor of Germany will co-chair the Summit for the Future that will take place next September on the 23rd to the 24th. And that summit will look specifically at the Sustainable Development Goals and the mandate of both leaders and our two countries is to see how the international community can regain momentum in order to strengthen delivery on the Sustainable Development Goals. The President also discussed a very important topic, that is, of course, climate change. Namibia is emerging as a champion in the fight against climate change, and specifically the types of solutions that Namibia is providing in terms of decarbonization. Of course, green hydrogen is now the talk of town, and Namibia is leading in Africa in terms of the generation of green hydrogen in order to fight climate change. So that discussion took place between President Geingob and Olaf Scholz. And of course, the question of the genocide, which is currently stalled because there's disagreement about the quantum, the amount of money that ought to be paid for the reparation. So President Geingob raised these three important issues with his counterpart. The President also had bilateral talks with the Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo. That meeting focused again on green hydrogen because Belgium is one of the key players in Namibia in the green hydrogen space with tangible investments in the sector. As we speak, a Belgian company last year had a groundbreaking ceremony, last week had a groundbreaking ceremony to set up a green hydrogen fuel station. So jobs, as we speak, are being created in the green hydrogen space. And that's, of course, in addition to the scholarships that have been rolled out and so on. Namibia is, of course, a key player in the diamond sector. So the discussions also focused on the diamond sector globally and so on. But I must also mention here that the President also emphasized to Prime Minister De Croo that it's important for Europe to de-escalate the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So those three issues were touched on. The president also had a meeting with the president of Hungary, Mr. Novak, and they discussed the bilateral, the state of the bilateral relationship, and the president extended an invitation to President Gengov to visit Hungary next year. Of course, Hungary is playing an important role in strengthening our education sector. Scholarships are being provided to Namibians, and the president of Hungary committed to increase the scale of those scholarships, but more importantly, to strengthen economic ties between Namibia and Hungary. The president also had bilateral meetings with leaders from the region. As you know, President Gengov is the outgoing chairperson of the SADC Troika, and in that capacity, he continues to play a very important role in strengthening peace and security in the SADC region. So meetings with the president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, as well as a bilateral meeting with the president of the Republic of Botswana, Mokgweetsi Masisi. So that's in a nutshell some of the high-level meetings. Unfortunately, the president, due to a very tight calendar, could not take some of the meeting requests that were also at the head of state and head of government level. But I should also maybe just to conclude on the nature of the high-level meetings on the margins of anger. The president also participated in an event that was organized by the Next African Narrative at the Apollo Theater, alongside the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, as well as President Masisi and the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Linda Greenfield Thomas. So the objective of that meeting was to see how the narrative about Africa can be recalibrated, because some of the narratives about Africa, it's a state of conflict and so on. And President Gengov challenged specifically the diaspora to do more in terms of reshaping those narratives, to speak about an Africa as it is, one that is emerging, one that is making a vital contribution to the development of humanity.
Okay. Doctor, let me take you back to the discussion surrounding or around genocide. There is an impression created that President Gengov allegedly referred to the apartheid as was worse than genocide. Let's just clear the air around that sentiment.
Asteria, this is, in our estimation, really a side issue. And there are those who are trying to instrumentalize the genocide to divide Namibians, and that is not the space where President Gengov is. President Gengov has led the fight for freedom with others, and his mantra has always been the unity of the Namibian people. And on the question of genocide, he has, as a scholar, also written about it in his dissertation of 2004, State Formation in Namibia. The president explicitly condemns the brutality of the German colonial regime in Namibia, and he singles out the Ovaherero uprisings. He singles out the Nama uprisings. He also talks about the uprisings around Grootfontein area. So he's been consistent in his condemnation of what he describes as the most brutal form of colonialism, and that is German colonialism in Namibia. So that goes on to emphasize the fact that the president, in no uncertain terms, will he relegate the issue of the genocide to a second class. In fact, the text that we have, and I was also in the hall, President Gengov merely emphasized apartheid as an equally brutal regime. So I think the polemic around the issue of the genocide is really misplaced. It is attempts, these are attempts by politicians trying to divert attention from what has been achieved during the president's visit to the United Nations General Assembly. I think that ought to be our focus as Namibians. The issues that President Gengob is emphasizing is unity, development, and the prosperity of the Namibian people. And that's what we are focused on as a presidency, and that is what President Gengob will continue to champion. Let us also not forget the fact that under President Gengob, the issue of genocide gained serious momentum. The appointment of Ambassador Z. Gavire, a special envoy, in 2015, we should not forget that it happens under President Gengob, and that gave it a vital push up to the draft agreement that was signed between the draft agreement between Namibia and Germany in 2021, where Germany agrees to the fact that it committed a genocide in Namibia against the Waherero and the Nama people, and it also committed atrocities against other Namibians. Germany agrees to offering an apology to the Namibian people, the affected communities, at an appropriate time, at an appropriate platform. Germany agrees to reparations. So these are three key issues that occurred within the key developments that occurred within the presidency of Dr. Hage G. Gengob. So anyone who tries to divert attention from what has been achieved is really dishonest. Yeah. And I think we do know that there are those who collaborate with the apartheid regime, never raised these issues of genocide and so on.
Okay, where do things stand now with the German genocide negotiations moving forward?
The president has been quite clear that, of course, the issue of genocide is quite important on his agenda. But currently, the discussions are stalled because, as we all know, there's no agreement about the quantum, the amount of reparations that Germany has offered. And the president does agree that the amount is insufficient. But at the same time, President Gengob has also shared the view that the lives that have been lost can never be compensated with money. So that's one element that is also equally important that we need to consider. Of course, as I've said earlier, the president raised the quantum with the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Olaf Scholz, and that's about 14 days ago. Yeah. So anyone who tries to say that the president is not giving attention to this issue is utterly dishonest. And I think it's a conversation that we need to close. We need to move on to the agenda of developing our country, the issues of unity, the opportunities that are emerging in our country. Green hydrogen, Namibia is receiving a lot of attention. Yeah. You cannot imagine the number of invitations that President Gengob is receiving from world leaders to share a stage with them, to visit their countries. And that is to talk about Namibia as one of the model countries in terms of what it's doing when it comes to the green energy transition, but also we are emerging as an important oil and gas frontier. These are opportunities that we as Namibians should seize. That's what we should talk about, because that's development, that's unity, that's prosperity. Speaking
about development, the president, apart from the discussions that he had with several leaders, also actually delivered speeches. What were Namibia's contributions to that, and also looking at our targets, goals, and objectives?
The president spoke at the SDG summit. That was also that preceded the main general debate of the General Assembly. Yeah. And on that occasion, the president, of course, advanced the case of Namibia in terms of what we have achieved when it comes to development, our fight against poverty, access to education, access to health. We have made commendable progress in those areas. But the president also cautioned about Namibia's classification as an upper middle income country, which is an issue that has now been also taken on board by a number of world leaders, including Justin Trudeau of Canada, who is also championing the very same issue, that this classification of countries as upper middle income, when there is inequality, is unfair, because it robs Namibia of loans at favorable rates. It robs Namibia of grants that are essential for us to fight against poverty, for us to roll out quality education, for us to roll out health and so on. So these are the issues that President Geingob raised during that summit. But I think importantly, during in his statement to the General Assembly, President Geingob cautioned the international community against the slow pace of delivery when it comes to the SDGs. Of course, the President also mentioned the fact that COVID-19 impacted negatively the ability of many governments to fight poverty. And I think in Namibia, we should not lose sight of the fact that, yes, we have made progress since 1990 in the fight against poverty. Poverty in Namibia was well over 70% at independence. And by 2019, poverty has been decreased to below 20%. That's commendable. But of course, with COVID-19, and the decimation of economies as a result of COVID-19 cannot be underestimated. So anyone who talks about development or the fight against poverty today should not forget the COVID-19 pandemic. And in the context of Namibia, we should not forget the severe droughts recorded to have been the worst in the history of this country. We should also not forget the fact that Namibia was just emerging from a highly devastating commodity cycle bust that affected our ability to generate revenue and so on. Some of these issues were crystallized in the statement of the President to the General Assembly. And the President, of course, also raised the importance of the fight against climate change, and also provided the bouquet of solutions that Namibia is offering to the international community in the fight against climate change. Of course, green hydrogen be a central pillar in our decarbonization agenda, but also in the provision of energy to Namibia.
Thank you, Doctor. If you have just joined us, you're watching a live brief from Dr. Hengari, who is the press secretary from the presidency. Please join us online on Facebook. You can share your questions there, and the doctor will give you answers. Or if there are answers, we have a few journalists on the floor who might probably have a few questions to pose to Dr. Hengari. You're also welcome to pose your questions. Otherwise, Doctor, maybe we can give a brief of what is on the President's calendar starting today. That is very important for the nation to note.
Yeah, no, the President is seized with the agenda of development for the country, the agenda of unity. There are many issues on the table of the President as we speak. Yesterday, he met youth young people of this country because he believes that the presidency is the Namibian house. And when we get requests from schools, from young learners to come and visit, he takes a moment to meet them. That's in addition to his busy schedule of coordinating the work of government and also speaking to various stakeholders in Namibia as well as abroad. Yesterday, he took a call from President Paul Kagame of the Republic of Rwanda to discuss bilateral relations between Namibia and Rwanda, and that is in the course of a day. So now the President is seized with the national agenda. There are pressing issues, of course. We have to fight poverty. We have to ensure that we improve on the quality of our health infrastructure. These are issues on the agenda, and also the question of the upgrades of sports facilities. There are many issues on the agenda of the President. And I should also mention that the President has been invited to Belgium later in the month to participate alongside European leaders in the global gateway, which is about showcasing Namibia as one of the model countries in as far as driving the fight against climate change is concerned, but importantly, the green hydrogen as a platform to decarbonize the world.
Okay. Final remarks, Doctor?
Yeah, Asteria, we are as a country at a pivotal moment in this year of revival. We have gone through a very, very difficult period. The Gengo presidency has been challenging. In fact, we all have to recognize the challenge that we faced as a country, and they were not of our making. You cannot stop a drought. And what is worse, you cannot stop the worst drought in the history of Namibia. The commodity cycle bust preceding the drought is also not of our making. These are external events. But what is critical is the nature of leadership that is provided in terms of dealing with those external intervening variables. I think the Republic of Namibia is standing today, and as the President says, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it's for all of us to seize the opportunities that are there and to seize the opportunities that also lie ahead. But we cannot do so if we continue to speak ill of ourselves. We need to develop the mindset that is positive and that allows us to work collectively and for us to hold hands in order to reach those goals that we have set for ourselves.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hengari. That was Dr. Alfredo Hengari, Press Secretary in the Presidency, just speaking to us on the successful participation of Namibia by Dr. Hage Geingob at the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in the United States of America. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Until next time, from myself, Asteria and Jenja, and the rest of the production crew, goodbye.